What is going on, everybody? So, back again with another video. There have been so many trade discussions and so many trade rumors regarding players like superstars, all the way to players that shouldn't really be in the league anymore. With all the movement we've seen this offseason, I thought it'd be a good time for me to talk about those trade candidates, talk about why the trade should happen, why they shouldn't, and predict where I believe they will end up. The player I wanted to kick off today's video with is Donovan Mitchell. After the Utah Jazz lost in the first round once again, everybody and their mama knew that the Jazz had to do something to retool, rebuild, or just overhaul their roster. They started off doing that by trading their defensive anchor and Rudy Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves for 5 first-round picks as well as a couple young players. At first, it seemed like Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to be traded, but then a report came out stating that the Utah Jazz were answering calls regarding the young guard. Donovan Mitchell is a lead guard that averages 25 to 26 points per game, just entering the prime of his career. Any team looking to get him is going to have to give up several first-round picks, as well as some young assets that the Utah Jazz can look to trade once more or build up within their core. One thing we got to look out for rebuilding teams is that they don't want to take on additional salary, and they want to have basically a clean slate. With that in mind, the perfect team for Donovan seems to be the New York Knicks. Another report came out that the Utah Jazz do not want RJ Barrett in potential Donovan Mitchell trade, as they'd have to pay him next season. The New York Knicks have some young assets that I feel like would be ultimate tank commanders, like Quentin Grimes and Obi Toppin, maybe even Emmanuel Quickly if they look to move on from him in a potential trade. Whatever they do, the Knicks are going to have to give up 7 to 8 first-round picks to get Donovan. I feel like that's kind of worth it. Knicks are the mecca of basketball. You know, they're the team that everybody talks about, but they've kind of been the laughingstock of the league for the last 10 or so years. Time for the Knicks to get back into contention, and I feel like this trade is a step in the right direction. If that's all it takes to get Donovan Mitchell, you do so first off without gutting your roster. You're keeping your young star and RJ Barrett. Julius Randle can hopefully rejuvenate his career and be better, as well as all the other veterans you have on your team. Newly acquired Jalen Brunson will be an upgrade for Donovan over Mike Conley and a great 1-2 punch in that backcourt. And this isn't a trade that the Knicks should be hesitant on. They've done a move like this before when they traded for Carmelo Anthony, so maybe something gets done right here. It makes sense from all areas. The Jazz want to rebuild. Donovan has New York ties. I honestly think if Donovan was on the move, it's going to be to New York. A Kevin Durant trade request is the most shocking / least shocking thing that has happened in NBA this offseason, if that makes sense to you. One thing that I've learned over the past however many years is that Kevin Durant does not like drama. And I feel like that's the biggest reason as to why he made this request. Once things got real feisty in Golden State, he bolted. And you can tell by his Twitter that he doesn't like how people respond to certain things about him. It's the Kyrie Irving situation. It's the James Harden trade. It's the Nets getting swept in the first round. All of that comes back to Kevin Durant. I truly believe he wants a stress-free environment, which makes sense for most players, but at the same time, if you're a superstar of his caliber, you got to take the good with the bad. Everything that happened in Brooklyn this year revolved around a global pandemic, a few injuries, and just a lot of uncertainty surrounding the team. But even with all that, will KD even get traded? He just signed an extension, and for the teams looking to trade for him, it's going to take a lot. And at that point, would a trade even make sense? I said it in the past, and I'm going to say it again. I ultimately believe that KD stays. Him and the Nets are going to work out their kinks or whatever they have going on and move forward with this like nothing happened. For his co-partner, though, things could get a little dicey. So much hoopla and craziness since Kyrie has gone to Brooklyn. I touched on that in previous videos, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. First, it seemed like Kyrie Irving was going to decline his player option and become a free agent, but instead he opted in, looking for the Brooklyn Nets to potentially trade into another team. The trade with the most talk has been Kyrie Irving to the Lakers, but it seems like that has died down because the Lakers just don't have the assets to acquire a star or a player of Kyrie Irving's caliber. Doesn't seem like any other team has really come knocking. Personally, I'd like to see a team like Miami or Dallas look to make a move for Kyrie, but once again, those teams don't really have the assets to do so, and even if they did, I don't think they want to move on from those guys, bring in Kyrie, and have potentially another headache. With Kyrie, his biggest issue is that there's just so much uncertainty revolving around his future, and for that reason, I believe he's going to stay as well. I believe he and the Brooklyn Nets will figure things out, because if he really wanted to leave, I think he would have opted out of that deal. The last player I want to talk about in today's video is Russell Westbrook, who has seemingly been in trade discussions for the last 5 or 6 years of his career. You can say that Russell Westbrook's play in LA has been very underwhelming. People all around the team, everybody tried to talk themselves in to this whole AD, Russ, LeBron thing working, and it just hasn't. You can make the case that they could just run it back, but LeBron James is getting older, even Russell Westbrook is getting older, so we don't even know how he'll play next year. The Lakers are now scrambling to try to find pieces that fit alongside LeBron and AD. It looks like Russ is going to have to be the oddball out. The biggest problem with this is that Russ has little to no trade value. This $43 million contract, no team really wants to take that on unless they're a rebuilding team. there's a couple out there where I could see Russ going to. The biggest one for me has to be Indiana. I think they've shown with previous moves that they're looking to rebuild. And to do so, you're going to have to get rid of those veteran players that are looking at their next NBA contracts. And they have two of them in Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. Now, is Russell Westbrook and a couple first-round picks worth Miles Turner and Buddy Hield? Personally, I'm not too sure. Like I said earlier about the Utah Jazz, if you're a rebuilding team, all you really want are future assets and to get rid of players that would help you win games. We saw that in the DeJounte Murray trade. All it took was a player like Danilo Gallinari and a plethora of first-round picks to get an all-star guard. Why can't the Lakers trade Russ and some picks for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner? Considering Miles Turner hasn't played basketball in over a year and Buddy Hield is Buddy Hield, I don't really see the Pacers getting too much more than what the Lakers have to offer for them. With that in mind, I could see Russ going to Indiana, getting waived, and then looking to sign with the contender in hopes of winning an NBA championship. There's a bunch of other players like John Collins and some smaller type trade candidates that have been talked about throughout this offseason. Regarding those guys, I don't feel like the smaller trade candidates really move the needle for certain teams. With the DeJounte Murray trade, I can't really see John Collins being moved from Atlanta. With that though, let me know where you guys think these players will end up. At this point, the offseason has kind of died down, but I'm still going to be spewing out a lot of content for you guys. Like I say in every video, if you guys did like this video, please leave a like down below. Subscribe if you are new. With that, catch you guys. Peace.